Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, well, as you can see, I'm going to be talking tonight about where you can find love on the internet, I suppose. I'll say a few words about online dating, first of all. As we all know, there are lots of dating sites out there. There's dating sites, just normal dating sites, like this one is Match.com. We've got eHarmony, Dating Direct. There are also websites, dating sites, which cater for people who are from different ethnic groups, for Jews, for Muslims. There are dating sites for people who are gay, there are people who are, like I noticed yesterday, dating sites for people who are ugly, apparently. Dating sites for all sorts, any demographic. There seems to be dating sites out there for these sorts of things. The structure of my hopefully half-hour talk is going to be this. I'm going to talk about relationship initiation and development, a little bit about online flirting, whether you can actually, the evidence of whether you can actually find true love on the internet, how people portray themselves, portray themselves accurately, and finally a little bit about sort of online infidelity and can you have an online affair. So those are the sort of the structure of my talk is going to centre on those 5 different things. So firstly then, romantic relationship initiation, face-to-face, what happens? Well, these people there, Tim Perper and Fox, did a study, suggested that when we go to bars and things, we kind of catch the eye of someone we like, there's a kind of sequence of events we go through. Okay? The first one is apparently approach, which I'm always a little bit amused by because a psychologist has to tell you that to form a relationship, you have to approach somebody. To me. There is then the swivel and synchronize phase, where when you approach, you have to swivel and synchronize your movement. And as we probably know from our knowledge of box psychology, synchronizing movements is a kind of an indication of rapport with somebody else. And then the final stage is the touch stage. It's not just a touch, but it's when we say touch, well, it's this really. In the touch phase, there's talking, there's listening. There's the bits I'm going to talk about in a minute. There's the disclosure of information, and there's people sort of a little bit of banter, a little bit of humour. So in that touch phase, there's this going on, and this really, I guess, is what's going on perhaps in the sort of online relationship initiation, because we don't have approach, we don't have swivel and synchronise, we can't see people, so relies principally on these things instead. So relationship initiation online, then, well, I guess we're not able to see people, so therefore this sort of physical attributes are absent. Therefore, it's the way in which we describe ourselves online which is important. And there are some gender differences here. We know from knowledge of evolutionary psychology going back a long time, not going back a long time, but from the evolutionary psychology perspective, okay, men tend to describe themselves, they say in personal ads, that men, we are wealthy and successful and we want to meet attractive females. Okay? This is the kind of pattern we get. Whereas females apparently say we're attractive females and we want to meet rich and powerful and successful men. Okay? That's the kind of way it goes. Okay? So there's a difference, a gender difference in the ways in which people do actually describe themselves. See people shaking their heads? Okay, this study from Charlotte and Chris back in 1995, they said one of the very first, I think it's a dating websites in some little town in the States somewhere, and they said that females sort of looks and bodies are important. They need to sort of portray themselves as being fertile and healthy, whereas for males, they need to display dominance, they need to display how they can contribute resources and so on. Okay, so that's what males do. Okay, and males rate sort of physical attractiveness higher, okay, whereas apparently females rate physical dominance and status higher. So there are gender differences in the ways in which males and females portray themselves. Okay, so the data says. Okay, so when we describe ourselves, the next stage, I guess, online is that there's a bit of online chat, and there's a bit of, we find talking to someone rewarding. Okay, so that's there's a bit of rapport going on there. Okay, and it kind of goes like this then, there's a bit of online chat. there's a bit of sort of disclosure going on, there's a bit of rapport, and then finally people might arrange to meet face to face. Okay, I'm going to come back to this bit about disclosure in a minute. There you go, in a minute, by the way. Okay, we know from face-to-face disclosure, again, I'm sorry to stick with gender differences, guys, but there are gender differences in the sorts of things people disclose. Disclosure, just a bit of sort of pops up on knowledge for you if you like. We disclose more information to people we like. Okay, we like people more when they disclose to us. Okay, so disclosure, this sort of mutual disclosure, is very, very important. Females tend to disclose these sorts of things. Okay, like feelings they have, feelings towards their friends, the things they like, their accomplishments, all these sorts of things generally, if we do any sort of content analysis of this. Whereas for males tend to say things like what their political views are, sort of facts, things, their achievements. Okay, so there are gender differences again in the ways in which people disclose information face to face. Okay, another thing about self-disclosure is that there's a progression of disclosure. When we meet somebody face to face, we don't necessarily sort of tell them everything about it straight away. If you meet somebody straight away, you don't walk up to them and say, oh hello, my mother's an alcoholic, because that's just too much too soon. Okay? There's a progression of disclosure according to Altman and Taylor's model. Okay, it's called the wedge of social penetration model. It goes kind of like this. Okay. If we imagine that these sort of concentric circles represent the sorts of information people disclose, we've got on the outside we've got superficial information, we've got intimate information, and then we've got some very intimate information over and there. This sort of wedge shape just represents, there we are, when we first meet, that's the sort of information we disclose when we first meet, okay? And then when we've known each other for a while, then we disclose more and more superficial information and a little bit of intimate information, okay? Which is kind of figures, doesn't it? You would only disclose intimate information to somebody you knew quite well. How this works online is slightly different because online interaction relies a lot upon people talking, it relies upon disclosure of information. You couldn't really chat to somebody online to and say something like, well, hello, it's a bit cold here today, the temperature's about -1. Oh really, how interesting? Yes, they think we're pretty boring. So you have to disclose a lot more quickly. Okay? So online interaction does rely on people disclosing more information a lot more quickly. Okay, I said that it's almost a necessary prerequisite of the online interaction that people disclose information. And we also know from the study from Underwood and Finley that males apparently tend to disclose information quicker than females. Males are very, very good at sort of, we like disclosing information to the opposite sex. Apparently, there's data on that as well. Okay, a little bit next then about online flirting. I'll just mention two things: the use of humour and how we might use our bodies in an online interaction situation. Okay. Obviously, as I said, humour is quite important because you would, if you were sort of conversing with somebody you hadn't really met face to face, if you were conversing with them online, then if you were to talk about superficial things, which you could do face to face, okay, online, then you really couldn't do that. You could just be, you would just switch off. Okay, to talk about the weather or isn't this a nice room? Okay, not really interesting. Okay, and I'm gonna. We all say, I'm sure that those of us who've tried online dating. I tried it for the first time last night. Being a single guy again. I tried this for the first time last night. Anyway, but we all say in these things that we like somebody with a sense of humour. We all say that. Okay, we like somebody, if we're going to sort of want a partner, we like somebody with a sense of humour. Yeah? Okay. What do we mean by liking somebody with a sense of humour? I'm just going to try a little test here. I don't know if you can see that. If you can't, I'll read it. Imagine that you're in a situation in which you're choosing between two potential dating partners. In all respects, they're equal. Okay, they're equal, physically attractive, intelligence. They're equal in terms of being interesting. They're equal in terms of being compassionate and caring, and so on. There are two differences between them. And I'm going to give you two alternatives, okay, and I want you to choose between the two. Okay? The first person, this is person A, okay, is great at making you laugh, and you think they're very funny. However, they don't laugh all that much when you joke around. They listen attentively to you, but when you joke around, you rarely get more than a smile from them. Okay, that's person A. Right? Or person B. Person B laughs at all your jokes. They obviously think you're a very funny person, although you don't find their humour all that funny. You don't find it offensive, okay, and you don't get their jokes, but they rarely make you laugh. Okay? So can we have just a show of hands, very quickly, who would prefer person A? Okay, and person D. Okay, right. This is quite what we wanted. Okay, there are preferences there. There are gender preferences in as much as for humour production, okay, which is the first one, okay, is generally preferred by females. Okay, females like sort of humour production, whereas humour appreciation is preferred by males. Okay, so just a little bit of tip for you there. If you're out and about, you're a male, okay, you've got to make some, brush up on the jokes, make something laugh. If you're a female and you quite like somebody, you've got to make sure that you laugh at the jokes. So there's a difference. Okay, in terms of predicting sexual interest, this study by Gramer and Ebersfeld suggests that in dyadic interactions between males and females, okay, the amount of laughter produced by females, okay, is predictive of the amount of sexual interest in the male, whereas the amount of laughter produced by males is not predictive of sexual interest of the female. Okay, so there's a difference. Okay, the explanation is this, apparently, for an explanation, is that humour, okay, humour production, okay, is indicative of being creatively intelligent, okay, which is indicative of having good genes. When you've got good genes, then you're attractive. Okay? So this is what counts for this sort of gender difference. Females are wanting males with good genes. Apparently, this is the explanation by Miller, if males make you laugh, they're creatively intelligent. If they're creatively intelligent, they've got good genes. If they've got good genes, they're attractive. Okay? So, I'm linking this tenuously to online dating, that you have to sort of, one of the things you're advised to do is to make people laugh. Okay, so, or if you're a female, then make sure you do laugh and say that's a very funny joke. Okay, and secondly, so do we very, very quickly, do we use our bodies online? According to Monica Wicky's research, she suggests that we do, quite obviously in online flirting, because someone smiling, for example. Okay, we use these little sort of these things here. We use emoticons, we use acronyms now. All these sorts of things represent, the way we're feeling. So it's not just the words people use, which quite often can become fairly ambiguous. Okay, but it's the way in which what we say is accompanied by these little sort of emoticons, these acronyms, okay, which represent, according to Wiki, the way in which we're using our bodies. Okay. Can you find true love online? You think? I guess the answer is probably resounding yes, because as I mentioned, all those dating websites earlier on, that's for a proliferation of dating websites, okay, which is still out there, still successful. So I guess they must be doing something right. I suppose the evidence speaks for itself in that respect. So, can romantic couples who meet online, can they form lasting relationships? Okay. Well, apparently there are four important factors here which are involved in this. Okay? In other words, there are four things which have to happen, okay, for these relationships which are started online to be sustained face to face. Okay, the first one is where people meet. Okay? So the type of website they use, for example, if that website caters for their mutual interests, because the data on romantic attraction generally suggests that we're more compatible with people who share common interests with ourselves. The sort of old proverb or saying that opposites attract really kind of isn't true, isn't upheld by the evidence. Generally, we like people who like the same things as us. Okay. Secondly, it's what they do together, meaning overcoming things such as physical distance, the accommodation, the willingness of one person to move to where someone else is. There we are. There. childish sort of playing with PowerPoint. Okay, so it's what they do. One is prepared to move. Obviously, if they're not, then they're not going to get together. Taking time to get to know each other. So this sort of online interaction has to sort of go on for a little while people really get to know each other, to make sure that they do know each other, they do share common interests before they move. Okay. So you've got people there taking time to represent one of my cult. And there they are, and then they get together. Okay, so that's the third thing, they're taking time. And the fourth thing is, if they've got some good communication skills, if they can scale the long distance relationships, how they overcome things like disagreements, arguments, this sort of thing. So apparently it's these four things, where they meet, what they do together, taking time to get to know each other, and good communication skills. If those things sort of fall into place, those are the four main what we call predictors of the couples who stay together after they've started a relationship online. Okay, just going to sort of digress a little bit to talk about the characteristics of the features of online communication. This is a paper in 2004 by a guy called John Sula, who said there are various sort of characteristics of online communication which we don't get face to face. There's firstly a degree of asynchronicity. The interaction can be asynchronous, in as much as you can sort of post some information, email somebody. Okay, they don't have to respond necessarily straight away. Okay? You can't do that face to face, can you? You can't say, "Do you want a drink?" and then half an hour later somebody says, "Oh, yes, please." Okay, you have to. It's a synchronous interaction face to face. Online, it can be asynchronous. Okay, which means that there's no continuous feedback, which means in some people have a feeling that they can post a message and run away after they post the message. Rather like if you sort of dump your boyfriend or girlfriend by text. Have you ever done that? Yeah, you send a text and you go, "I hate you," send. And then you're not going to see them. Okay, so you run away, you do that. There's a degree of fantasy involved in online communication, in as much as maybe people see the online world as a bit of a game. Okay, it's not real. People sit by their computers. It's not a real thing. There are not real people there. Okay, there's a sort of, I guess, a sense of escapism, I suppose, in this online world. There's a minimization of status and authority. Okay, so there's what we call like an equalizing effect. There's no non-verbal communication going on when you talk to somebody face to face. Okay, they look a bit bored. To moderate what you're saying according to if they start playing with something else while you're talking to them. Okay, online you don't get that. Okay, there's this sort of equalizing effect. There's a status equalizing effect in that you don't see people as being superior or inferior. People are seen as the same. There's a sense of visibility, perhaps, that you're there. You might be sort of watching a communication going on. People might be sort of lurking and watching a communication perhaps going on. So there's a sense in which you can be a little bit invisible. And there's a sense in which, even though you've got your sort of name or your communication, you can be slightly anonymous. Okay, so there's a sense of anonymity, even though you might not be. All of these things add up to, we've got asynchronicity, fantasy, minimization of authority, visibility, okay, anonymity, lead into this, what we call the online disinhibition effect. Okay? In as much as, so all that is saying is that people are less inhibited about what they say online than they are face to face. Okay? Which sort of, go back to what I said earlier, people interact differently online than they do face to face. You say different things, you feel a little bit more at ease than what you're saying. Where this is leading is to my next point about how people actually portray themselves online. How they sort of describe themselves. In online dating sites, I'm sure there's I'm not going to present some now, but there is some evidence to suggest that people do kind of misrepresent what they actually look like. And what they look like, and what they do, how much they get paid, and so on and so forth. Probably not a good idea, because if you're going to meet somebody, they can see you eventually, and they're going to realise that you don't drive a Rolls Royce, you drive something modest perhaps. Okay, when you don't live there, you live here. Okay, so it's no point doing that. But people are nevertheless tempted to do this because you want to sort of portray yourself in the best way. You want to give yourself the best chances possible. Okay, so there's my Facebook photograph. Okay, so do we misrepresent ourselves then? And you're all saying, no. Well, here's the data from one study by Monica Whitty on this. Here we are. This is the misrepresentation. Okay, in this particular study, on this one particular dating site. Okay, right, with the photograph, males 6.7%, females 46.7%. Incredible gender difference there in terms of the sort of photograph you can put up on the site. Okay, in terms of relationship status, men lie more than females. Yes, no, I'm single. No, it's all right. No, I'm not. 30.3 compared to 6.7. In terms of age, again, it's a bit of a difference there between males and females. Weight, SES, socioeconomic status. Okay, where males tend to lie about this a lot more than females. Again, it's consistent with what we said earlier about what people want in relationships. And in terms of interests, well, many females don't misrepresent their interests at all. Males also 10% of the time. Okay, so people, at least in this study by Monica Whitty, did misrepresent themselves. And as I said, misrepresent yourself is you kind of misrepresent yourself a little bit, just as you do. Okay, it also depends as well whether we think we are interacting with attractive people or unattractive people. Okay, so if we think we're sort of putting some information across, okay, and we think we are sort of interacting with someone who's sort of okay or something unattractive, such as this. Okay, then people don't misrepresent their profiles, they don't misrepresent themselves as much at all. Okay. If we think we are interacting with attractive people, picture on the left there. Okay, then people do become deceptive in order to sort of misrepresent their sort of their details in order to sort of portray themselves as being better than they are. You can just look at that on. Okay, what sorts of deception do people engage in? Okay, well, they might misrepresent their income, their career, their level of intelligence. And no difference in this study. This is a study on students by relative, okay, between males and females. So people are just as bad, even though Monica Whitty's study suggested some sort of gender imbalance, people are just as likely to do so whether they're male or female. Okay, so we do misrepresent ourselves online. My final question, whipping through this, is can you have a virtual affair? Which I'm going to present some of my own research now. Okay, what is an online affair? Okay, sometimes we refer to this as online infidelity. Okay, Kimberly Young said this is a sustained online interaction, okay, just with somebody else. Monica Whitty again, it's sharing emotional information with somebody else. It's not looking at pornography. Okay, so looking at pornography online is not considered to be unfaithful in any way. You might think so, I don't know, but generally it's not. It's more the case of interacting, sharing emotional, personal information with somebody else. So that's the kind of general sort of definitions, I suppose, we've come up with. What we looked at, we want to look at this a little more closely. We want to look at what the components were of online infidelity. And me and one of my students a couple of years back, we looked at three different things. We looked at the amount of self-disclosure. I mentioned self-disclosure earlier, and I said that when people disclose to you, okay, if they disclose to you, you like them more, okay, or if you disclose to people, it's an indication you like them. So we thought, well, the amount of self-disclosure people form might be a relevant point. The time of day in which people interact. Okay, we say, well, maybe chatting late at night might be perceived as being slightly more unfaithful and sort of talking during the day. And we said, well, maybe the mode of communication as well, whether the communication mode was synchronous or asynchronous. Okay, so those are the three things we thought three relevant components which we thought might contribute to people's perceptions of online infidelity. And what we did was to give people scenarios such as this. Like Fred talks on instant messenger with Sue late in the evening about his personal feelings. Okay? Would you think that Fred was being unfaithful? Okay? Yes or no, kind of thing. So we gave people lots of these different scenarios, mixing up these things about disclosure, time of day of interaction, or mode or method of communication. Okay, and these are the results we came up with. We found significant results for the amount of disclosure. Okay, the higher the disclosure, the more personal the disclosure, obviously, the more people perceive that as being potentially, being unfaithful. Okay, obviously, people are talking about things like, it's a nice day today, is it? Yes. What's it like there? It's fine. If people are talking about things which are personal to them, okay, that's perceived as being unfaithful behaviour. And the other interesting thing we found as well was the time of day was important. When people talk in the daytime or the early evening, that was fine. When people were talking, to somebody else, not their regular partner, when they were talking late in the night, okay, to somebody else, okay, that was perceived to be potentially unfaithful behaviour. Okay, so we were looking to see what people thought was, what they described then as being unfaithful behaviour. Okay, well you can ask people what they think and to describe and say what they think unfaithful behaviour is, okay, but that doesn't necessarily tell us if that's real. So we went one step further with this and we looked at the emotional consequences of online infidelity, okay, by looking at how jealous people got. Okay, we know that jealousy, again, is, people talk about jealousy as a bad thing. I don't think it is. Okay, you can be in a relationship and you can be jealous, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, we're jealous, and if you know the distinction between jealousy and envy, jealousy is where we are sort of protective of somebody else trying to take what is ours. We're envious if we want something somebody else has got. Okay, so jealousy is behaviour which has evolved really to protect our relationships. If we're in a relationship, someone else is trying to move in on our relationship, okay, then we become jealous, and I think that's perfectly reasonable, sort of rational way to behave, isn't it? If you care for something. Okay, so what gets us jealous then? Okay, well I'm going to ask you another question now then. Okay, I want you to think, okay, if you please think of a serious committed relationship you've had in the past, that you currently have or would like to have. Imagine that you discover that the person with whom you've been involved became interested in somebody else. What would distress or upset you more? Okay, and there's going to be fingers on the buzzers. I'm going to give you two possible answers, and you have to very, very quickly choose A or B. Okay, and I'll ask for show of hands. Okay, so you've got the idea? Yeah? Okay. Here we go. The first one is imagine your partner forming a deep emotional attachment to that person. B, imagine your partner enjoying passionate sexual intercourse with that person. So hands up for A. Fantastic, good, and repeat. Okay. Doesn't quite work as I thought, but nevertheless. Okay. We're predicting that, at least from the literature on this, the suggestion is that females go for A. Okay, females, if you've got sort of forced choice kind of question here, okay, females can go for A, they're going to be more jealous of their partner forming an emotional relationship with somebody else, males are going to go for B. Okay, what we did in our study then, a year later, was to give people scenarios again, okay, about internet relationships and about sexual relationships, and we said things like, imagine this person is sort of having an internet relationship with someone else and they're disclosing information, okay, and there were other scenarios which said, well, imagine this person is having a sexual relationship with somebody else, and we asked them to rate how the people in the scenarios, how jealous they would be. Okay, the scores for jealousy for internet relationships and for the sexual relationships. Okay, this is what we found then for males, okay, that for the sexual relationship, okay, males were more jealous in the sexual relationship than they were in the internet relationship. Okay, that's the score for B. Okay, we've got roughly the same there for the sexual relationship. I'll come back and explain that in a minute. Okay, but we've got a significantly higher, okay, rate of jealousy for females in the internet relationship scenario. I think what we've got happening in the sexual relationship one is a kind of ceiling effect there, really. And this is consistent with the work of David Buss, going back almost 50 years. Okay, this is what Buss found for sexual and emotional jealousy, between differences between males and females. Okay, males, again, more jealous in the sexual situation than in the emotional one. Let's look at that for females. Okay, not as jealous in the sexual one, but females very, very jealous in the emotional one. Okay, so that's how our results compared with Buss's results. Apart from this sort of ceiling effect we've got on the left of our graph there, okay, they're pretty much the same. Okay, so even in internet relationships, you know, we get this sort of emotional exchange going on, okay, and we get the same patterns of jealousy between males and females going on there. Okay, there's kind of, I suppose, an explanation of this, and I'm looking at my colleagues there, if I get this right, is that in our evolutionary past, okay, males don't want other males having sex with their females because they might end up inadvertently rearing children which are not their own, which is not very good for males, you know, to inadvertently be doing that because they chose to do it. Okay, whereas for females, they don't want their males forming emotional attachments with other females because females are relying on their males for resources. If males then went off and formed emotional relationships with other females, then they'd suffer in terms of resources. So that's the kind of evolutionary take on this. Okay, so as I said, the male jealousy mechanism is, you know, fired up by the sexual infidelity of a mate or partner, whereas the female jealousy mechanism is motivated by the emotional infidelity of their partner. Okay, I think we've got to the end. Is that about right? Yeah. Good. Okay. So, in conclusion, I said the internet allows us to flirt online. We can find true love online, probably. We can misrepresent things about ourselves online, and we can even have online affairs. I think that's it from me. So, thank you very much for listening.